Good evening, everyone. Just increase the volume a little bit. I think that it's better now, a little bit at least. So welcome, everyone. Glad to be here once again. This is our second Monday of the month of the second Monday of the month of October, and we're getting close to the end of the year. Time passes by so quickly, and it's already fall, and as soon as the end of the month comes in, it's almost Christmas already. So we're getting there, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So every second Monday, as everybody knows, we have our meetings in English here. We've been doing this for quite a few years now, and we follow the sequence of the teachings of the Gospel according to Spiritism. But before that, we usually read a message and make a comment on. Now we're reading the book Our Daily Bread. Tonight, Mariana will be here with us once again. She will talk about chapter 146, Following the Truth. And right after that, I'll be back here to talk to you guys about, or to talk with you guys about chapter 11, item 14 on the Gospel according to Spiritism, which will talk about charity towards criminals, which is a very interesting topic. We have a few things to talk about. So welcome everyone, the ones who are listening to us now live online or maybe in the future. Feel free to leave comments, to subscribe to the channel so the channel grows, and spread the word so that more people can maybe in the future take advantage of these teachings, which help us grow on the inside. Because to grow on the outside, we just need to eat, right? To grow on the inside, we it's a little different. So with that, let's do an initial prayer with this lightness in our hearts and in our minds, because what Jesus came here to teach us is that love is powerful, that love lifts our lives, love lifts our hearts, and love makes us look at the world from a different perspective. And may tonight He bless us all with His love, with His understanding, and that with His help, we can understand better His message, but more than just understand. We ask you, dear friend Jesus, to help us feel your message, feel to our core, feel to our spirit, feel it within ourselves, so that everything that we think, everything that we say, and everything that we do in our lives show ourselves and shows the world that we are true followers of your message of love, of compassion, of embracing the other. So with this prayer, we would like to thank you for your blessings and ask your permission so that we can all start our meetings tonight. So be it. So as I mentioned, let's invite Mariana. She's going to talk to us about message 146. Mari.
Thank you very much, Mac. Good evening, everyone. So like Mac said, we're reading from Our Daily Bread from Chico Xavier by the Spirit of Emmanuel, chapter 146. And the title is Following the Truth. And Paul wrote that, and it's written on the Bible, and it says, "Instead, following the truth in love, let us grow in all things, and in him who is the head, that is Christ." And again, that was written by Paul. And Emmanuel says, "Because truth is relative, many thinkers opt for the road of absolute negativism, making materialism an area of extreme intellectual perturbation. How to interpret the truth if it seems to be so elusive to the ordinary method of evolution? Boasting superiority, the officious scientist exerts that what is real does not go beyond organized forms, much like fanatics who only accepts divine revelation within the circle of the dogmas they embrace. Paul, however, offers a valuable suggestion to those who hope to enter the realm of higher understanding. It is essential to follow the truth charitably, without the intent of incarnating in its gauge of limited definition. Let us convert the noble teachings we have received into love, making an effort to combine truth with charity will result in spiritual progress. Unless we heed this imperative, we will run into strong obstacles of the path of sublimation. We need to grow in everything that life offers us that is useful and commonly for an eternity with Christ. However, we will not be able to do so without daily transforming the small fragments of truth we possess into love for our neighbor. Understanding asks for reality as much as reality asks for understanding. Therefore, let us be truthful, but above all, let us be rightfuls. What is truth? What is truth? Jesus says that he is the truth. So for us Christian, Jesus is the truth, right? But is that all there is? The answer is no. So if Jesus is the only truth for the Christian, what is the truth for the Buddhists? What is the truth for Hinduists? You can't just say this is the truth and there's nothing other than that. You can't just put the truth inside a box and this is the truth and I'll keep it in the box and this is it. This is what Spiritism teaches. This is what Kardec taught us. To go beyond, to not, so in Portuguese we have a saying that if you put the horse inside the vision, if you put the horse in this vision, it will only see this. It will not see beyond this. And if we put our truth inside a box, this is all we're going to see. What about our surrounding? What about what's on our back? What about the others? What about everything else? For us to start understanding the truth, we have to first learn how to love our neighbors. This is the first step. And we are all so sure that we own the truth, that we know it all. And Jesus told us multiple times. And all the teachings we had after him keeps telling us, let's love our neighbor first. Let's love each other. Let's love ourselves. And we're so focused on the truth that we don't know, that we forget the first one, the first thing Jesus taught us: love our neighbor and love ourselves. So, what is the truth? Does anyone have the answer for what is the truth? Mac once said something that got stuck into me. He grabbed a book, so that's what I'm gonna do. He grabbed a book and he said, This book is blue, if you're seeing from that point of view. But if you're seeing from this point of view, the book is black. And if you're seeing from this point of view, the book may be red. And if you're seeing from this point of view, the book may be white. So the book has a bunch of different colors, and it's all true. It's all true. It depends from where you're seeing. It depends on how your truth is. You can't say my truth is not the right truth, and I can't say your truth is not the right truth. The same way Buddhists might tell me that my truth, being Jesus, is not the right one, and I can tell him that his truth, being Buddhist, isn't the right one. But why not? Buddhists taught them how to love. Jesus taught us how to love. Well, at least they tried. We're not there yet. And the same way other religions taught their followers how to love. So why is only my religion the right one? And Emmanuel says that. He says, where is it? He tells us that the scientists are sure that their truth is the only truth because they can see it, they can touch it, it's material, it's there, they can prove it. And then Catholics tells us that their truth is the right truth because they're Catholics and that was the church that Paul made. And then Protestants comes and tells us their truth is the right truth because, well, Catholics believe in saints and statues and Mary the Virgin and this and that, and everyone has their truth. And he's telling us right here, much like fanatics who only accept divine revelation within their circle of dogmas they embrace. They only accept their truth. Why is that? Why do we think that we are the only ones that are right? There's so many truths out there. I have my truth and my wife have her truth at home. And she believes her truth is the right one, and I believe my truth is the right one. So if we keep battling that truth, where are we going to end up? You'd be right, yeah. We're going to get to nowhere. So that's why I tell her, yeah, you're right. She's always going to be right. I don't care. It doesn't matter. My truth is my truth. Her truth is her truth. And if we keep bumping heads, we're not going to get to where we're supposed to get. Where is love? If we keep battling over who is right, who has the right truth, the only place we're going to get is to wars, is to fights. It's never going to get us anywhere. And it is essential to follow the truth with charity. What does that mean? With love, with affection, with care for one another. If my truth is hurting someone, how is my truth bringing love, bringing affection, being charitable towards my neighbor? How is my truth helping at all if it's hurting? So that's something we also need to think of. Is my truth hurting my neighbor? Is my truth hurting my loved one? If the answer is yes, please keep your truth to yourself. If the answer is no, it's helping, are you sure it's helping? Are you sure you're not hurting somebody's feeling by doing that? If you are 100% sure, go ahead, speak your truth. But if you're not, keep it to yourself. Make sure that love comes before your truth. Because in the end, that's all that matters. Understanding asks for reality as much as reality asks for understanding. So, understanding each other, understanding your neighbor. Therefore, let us be truthful, but above all, let us be righteous. Why? Why is that? We need to be truthful, but we also need to be certain that we're not hurting, certain that we're being truthful with love and respecting the truth of others and making sure that it's not hurting them. That's just all I have for tonight. I hope that I can be truth to myself without hurting others, and I hope that we can all get there and love our neighbor like Jesus asked us to do. Thank you so much.
And I am back. So, thank you, Mariana. The truth is always very hard to talk about the truth. Very, very hard. Thank you for your insights. So we are here back again, like I said before, to keep going on reading and understanding and thinking about the teachings of the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is the third book in the Spiritist compendium of main books, which we have like 5 main books, and this is the third one. And this one deals with the moral and ethical questions of our lives. This tonight we are following and going on chapter number 11, and we are going to talk about, as I said in the beginning, item number 14, which is charity toward criminals. I would like to end up this section of the book. This section of the book, which every chapter is divided in 2 main parts. Every chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism is divided in 2 main parts. Kardec usually starts the first part of each chapter by doing almost exactly what we have here when Mariana was doing, which is he grabs a little piece of the Bible, be it from one of the letters of Paul or of Peter, be it from sometimes the Old Testament, which is not very common, but he has a few passages from the Old Testament, and a lot of times from the 4 Gospels of be it Mark, Luke, John, or Matthew. So he grabs a little passage and then he talks about it. He writes something about that topic. He doesn't follow an order. He doesn't follow the biblical order. He follows topics. So he grabs items from here and there, sometimes from different places, gather them together in a chapter, and then he talks about it. So then after this first part, what he does is he goes to a section which is called, and he calls it, the Spirit's teachings. So what are these Spirit's teachings? They were messages that were received during the time that Kardec was ahead, doing these mediumistic meetings, and when they received messages from spirits through mediums, And then he would collect these messages and publish in this book with messages that regard the same topic that he's referring to in the main topic of the chapter. So it's usually, I mean, depending on the chapter, there are sometimes 2 messages, 3 messages. Some chapters are very big, so they have lots of different messages from different spirits. And in the beginning of the chapter, he is the one writing the explanations of the passages from the Bible. But in this part, they were messages received mediumistically through mediums from spirits that, of course, were already dead or discarnated at the time. And some spirits, we know who they are. Some spirits, we don't know who they are based on their names. But one thing that we are very certain of is that Kardec, having received thousands of messages and read thousands of messages, he collected only the ones that were in agreement with the teachings of Jesus, or with the that he could see that those messages were in agreement with different messages received by different mediums and dictated by different spirits, so that he could gather these messages and say, okay, this message agrees with this one, and this message was received 3 years ago in Belgium. This message was received now in France. This other message was received, I don't know, in the Netherlands. This message was received elsewhere. And then they all say similar things. So by not knowing what one said to the other, he collected these messages and say, okay, this message has a very high quality and a very high probability of being talking about this topic in the right way, or in the best way, or in the correct way. So that's how he tended to work to put these messages here in the Gospel according to Spiritism. And why am I saying this? Because sometimes we get a message from a person who is we know the name. For example, Pascal. Pascal was a scientist, right? So he wrote a message here. Then there was Sanson. Sanson was one of the participants of. He was alive when Kardec was already working, and then he died. He passed away, and then later on he gave a message. It was as if someone that worked here with us. For example, I never met him personally, but our Dante Labate, right? He worked here with us, and he founded lots of different Spiritist centers. So as if he one day came into our meeting and then gave a message. So that's what happened here. He came back, this Sanson came back and then gave a message, and Kardec put the message right here in this chapter. But there are other spirits who we don't know who they are. And the question is, do we really need to know who these spirits are? Depends. We don't need to know their names, and we don't need to know them themselves, but we will know them, not the personality, but we will know them based on what they say, right? And then that's mainly what Kardec used to do. He gets the message, he analyzes the message, doesn't care for the name. And in the medium's book, there's a chapter at the end of the book which is very interesting, where he gets a message that they received from Jesus. Then he puts the message there, and then he goes to analyze, and he says this message is from Jesus, but which Jesus? And then he goes and says, okay, this may be Jesus, but not the Jesus that we expect. It's another Jesus, so it's not going to be regarded as the Jesus of Nazareth. It will be another Jesus. So the name doesn't really matter. What matters is the contents, right? So I just wanted to, sometimes I just decide, and for whatever reason, I decide to talk.
Is it the spirit of truth?
Well, the spirit of truth, yeah. So
Is it different, or
It is different. It is different. Yeah, the spirit of truth it is mostly recognizable as if it was a very high spirit that came in the name of Jesus to write messages. Right. So in fact, right at the beginning of this book, right, there's a message that is the spirit of truth. That's right here. So it's like it can be like a collective of spirits or one spirit that came. So the spirit of truth is this, let's say the messenger that Jesus sent to give a message. But once again, the name doesn't matter. I mean, I can come here and say, hey, I just received a message from the spirit of the truth, and it doesn't really matter. It will depend on what I am saying. Right? And so this is something that we need to be very aware of, because we are so fascinated by names. We are so fascinated by images that we tend to, oh no, I believe because this person said or that person said. Of course that we tend to start to believe more and more once a person starts to say things that are like make sense. So after a little while I say, oh, it was like Nancy that said. So I will have a certain idea of what it is. But I have to be aware that we are fallible. We make mistakes, and not necessarily I'm going to be 100% correct in everything. That's why when I come here, sometimes I say, hey, don't go out like saying that I told and that whatever I say is completely true. You have to do your own research. You always have to study. You always have to go after a little bit, right? If you doubt it, there's no wrong. There's no wrongdoing in going after and say, oh, this information that he gave was wrong. It's my fault. It's not fault of the message itself. It's the fault of the messenger. So we have to always be very, very wary and very aware of the message based only on the name of the person. And there's a short story that I like a lot, and it's not because it was written by my dad, but it's because I really like the story because it proves this point. There's this story that he wrote once, and I love it. He says, okay, this person, someone received a message in a mediumistic meeting, and the person gave. They were reading the message, and everybody, oh, what a great message, what great content, and so on. But they were reading, and everybody was saying, oh, that's nice, good to think about this. Oh, I never thought about this. And then they keep like reading, and everybody is agreeing that the message has a very good content, a very, very elevated content. And then at the end, the person, someone asks, oh, who wrote the message? And the person says, it was whatever, I don't remember the name. It was Jose or whatever the name is. And the person, oh, that person? What? So you were just saying that the message was great, and just because you heard the name of the person who wrote the message doesn't work anymore? So it's the opposite, right? So we have both ways. We see a message and say, that message is whatever, and then you say, oh, it's from Adriana. Oh, that's a nice message, right? So what's the point, right? So it is very, very, very important that we really pay attention to the message. That there's a saying that in English and in Portuguese too. I mean, it's not a saying; it's just a sentence that they say: "Don't shoot the messenger. Don't kill the messenger." The messenger is just giving the message. If the message is good, or if it's bad, the messenger is just a name. What is the message? So it has that kind of idea. So I didn't do a research, and I apologize for that. But maybe someone has already done a research to know who this person who wrote this message was. It's called Elizabeth de France. So she was probably someone, of course, from France. And the book was written in France. Not all the spirits and not everybody that write here were like French. For example, the message that was Hendrik studied last month was written by a protector spirit. A protector spirit. It could be our protector spirit. It could be anyone's protector spirit. And it was written in Krakow, in Poland. So it was not a French person. It was a Polish person that was, I don't know, maybe the message was received in Poland or in Polish, because it was received in Poland, right, in Krakow. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter who the person is. What's really interesting and what's really important is that we get to the point and we get to the message and we think about it. We think about the message very, very clearly and very carefully, because some of these messages, when we read these messages, we read it once and maybe, we think about it, then we read it twice, then one day we read it again and we say, I think I never read this message before, because it hits us in a different way on that specific night, be it because we're thinking of something, be it because we just lived something similar, or we are living a situation that reminds us of that, and then that thing hits us in a different way. So the message for tonight was written by this Elizabeth of France in Havre in 1862, and talks about charity toward criminals. I'm sorry for taking that long to introduce this, but I really think that it is really important that we think about these things when we are reading any book, but especially this book here. I think it is very important for us to have in mind that the work that Kardec puts into each and every single message here, it is a work of someone who dedicated his life after he met this, had dedicated his life to make us see beyond. And here there's a pun. It's beyond life, because we die and we don't die, but beyond just what is written, beyond meaning going deep inside of ourselves. In this message, Elizabeth, she almost like, she starts almost like hitting us from the start. Sometimes we read a message and we tend to immediately think about other people, like, oh, it's for my husband, it's for my wife, it's for my brother, for whoever it is. This one, though, she makes it very, very hard for us to think about other people. She starts by saying, and I'm going to read a few parts because this is very, very interesting. This is a long message, so I'm not going to read everything, but I'm going to read a few small lines and a few small ideas here, especially from the beginning, from the start. And then I'm going to take a turn and go elsewhere. But I highly, highly, highly recommend everyone to read it. Chapter 11, item number 14, charity toward criminals. So of course the book is in Portuguese too, so you don't need to do it in English if you feel more comfortable with Portuguese. So she starts by saying this: true charity is one of the most sublime teachings that God has given to the world. So she starts by putting charity like on top of almost everything, which agrees to the main idea of what Jesus has been teaching us at all times. So she starts right off the bat just by stating maybe the obvious, but to state the obvious sometimes is very important, because sometimes it's so in our faces that we don't see it. It's like this morning, I entered the office, opened the door. When I opened the door, we have to set on the alarm so that the alarm doesn't like start blaring, and so we go to turn it off. Then for the past 1 or 2 weeks, there was this coffee table that was in our building is owned by my boss, so he rents some places on top. There are some rooms so apparently someone left, and they didn't want the coffee table, so they left for the office. So I think someone will come and grab the table. So the coffee table was there, just waiting for someone to pick up. So when I enter, I turn the alarm off, and then I look, and I don't see the table anymore. So I said, oh, someone must have picked up. And I saw like a jacket on the floor. So I said, oh, and the person probably forgot the jacket. Whatever. So I go into my place and sit down and start doing my stuff. And then comes the office administrator. So he comes, and then he comes and passes by, and he passes by, goes make the coffee, comes back, and he says, oh, someone took the table. He notices, right? And I said, yeah, I saw that someone took the table, and there was this jacket here. So he said, oh, no, I grabbed the jacket, and I put it away, and so on, right? So, okay, then time passes. Lunchtime. So I'm going to go out, and then I stop to talk to him. And then we start talking, and then we start talking about the table, and it's, oh, someone came pick it up. He asked me about the alarm, and I said, oh, the alarm there was something wrong with the alarm this morning, but I turned it off, and everything is okay, and so on. And said, yeah, maybe it was when the person came to pick up the table. And he said, yeah, maybe it was when someone came to pick up the table. He turns around, and when he turns around, I turn to the left. I had passed by there. I was there, standing there. The table was not there. But then I raised my eye like two millimeters, or half an inch, to speak in English, right? English people, American people don't understand millimeters. And I see the table. Not in the same spot. Someone moved the table a little bit. Like 2 meters, 3, whatever, it's right there. And I say, but the table is right there. And he comes, no, it's not. Then he comes off of his office, and he says, how come we didn't see that table? The table was right there, like moved just a little bit. And we didn't see, neither me nor him, both of us, we didn't see the table. I say, and then was lunchtime, so my boss is coming out, and then his daughter is coming out, and we start talking about the table. So the table, and we were laughing because we just noticed the table, and as soon as she comes, and she says, oh yeah, the table is right there. She saw it like right away. But I passed by it, he passed by it, we were talking about it, and we didn't see the table. Sometimes we need to state, yeah, that's me, right? And it's even more funny because there were 2 men, right? And then a woman comes by, she sees it, but 2 men couldn't see it, right? It's like, right? So sometimes we have to state the obvious because it's so in front of us, but someone needs to come and say it so that we can really. She says, so I'm going to read it again. True charity is one of the most sublime teachings that God has given to the world. Why is she saying that right off the bat? Because we forget it. We don't understand it. We still don't get it. We still don't know what true charity is. That's why she starts it right off the bat, so that we have. She says, like, as if she's saying, make no mistake, if I could stop the message right now, I would stop it right now, because that's the only sentence that you need to know, is that true charity is one of the most sublime teachings that God has given to the world. We could forget everything that she said, but one question would be raised. What is true charity? And that's the one that we need to try to find out. Because we tend to mistake charity for something else. She will say it later, and I'm going to jump, so I'll come back later. She says at one point that charity, then she will say on the 3rd chapter, she will start. See, the first paragraph, she starts by saying true charity. The 3rd paragraph, she starts by saying True charity. First paragraph, true charity is one of the most sublime, blah, blah, blah. Third paragraph, she says, true charity does not consist, so she explains, or she starts explaining what it is, does not consist only in the alms, only in the things that you give, or even in the consoling words that might accompany what you're giving. Oh, may God bless you. That's not true charity. It does not consist only in that. This is included in true charity, but it's just one little bit of what true charity really is. And then she goes and says, no, this is not what God asks of you. And then we could go back to the Spirit's book, to Kardec's question about charity, when he asks the spirits, what is charity in the eyes of Jesus? What did Jesus think when he was thinking of charity? That's what Kardec asks. Because, like Mariana was saying here, maybe we have, or not maybe, we have different facets of the truth, right? She used the example of the book. And she also used the example of different religions, which is perfect. Because there's a saying, and there's this saying in, I think it's in one Arab proverb, which is more connected and more related to the Muslims than to us, where they say that the truth is a mirror. And they say, the truth that God created is a mirror. And the thing is that when God was giving the truth, the mirror, to humans, this mirror fell and broke in million places, in million pieces. And every single one of us grab one piece of the mirror, which is part of the truth, but we tend to look at the mirror and say, this is the truth. No. This is a little bit of what truth really is. That's why I was saying it's so hard to get to the truth, because imagine the puzzle we have to make so that we can recreate that original mirror, right? So, what is this? So when Jesus says, and to us Christians, when we look at Jesus and we understand how big and how knowledgeable and how wise Jesus was, we look at his teachings as being the most sublime teachings. And that's why Kardec, of course, asks Jesus' opinion or view of what charity is. And one of the words that's used by the spirits to talk about charity is benevolence. That's the first word that they use, benevolence. So I'm going to read it here. The sublime charity taught by Jesus also, more than or not only alms, not only things that we give, not only words that we say when we're giving stuff, also consists in the benevolence always granted in all things, in everything, from us to the other, from us to my neighbor, from granted in all things toward your neighbor. That come from this to the other, toward, moving away from me, toward our neighbor. You can even exercise this sublime virtue on many individuals who do not need anything, who do not need alms, who do not need an icebreaker, not need food, who do not need anything from us. We can, and she says, you can. So she's not talking about my husband. She's not talking about my wife. She's talking to me. That's what I said in the beginning, right? That this is very hard because she is straight talking, looking into our eyes. But who needs words of love, consolation, and encouragement will lead to the Lord. So this benevolence must come from us to the other. That's why charity, well, not that's why, but she is getting to this idea of charity towards criminals. Who is your neighbor? That's what Jesus asks, right? Who is your neighbor? Who was the neighbor? Who was the neighbor of that man who was on the road, naked, beaten up? Who was the neighbor of that person? The neighbor of that person is the one who made himself available to help the other. He had to step out of his place to go and talk to and help and do something. It's an act of action and not an act of an act of action toward the neighbor and not an act of action away from the neighbor, which were the priest and the Levite, which saw the person, and because they had their duties, they moved away. Yeah. The question is, and when Jesus is teaching this, telling us this story, that's why I find this message so powerful. It's because Jesus is that kind of teacher that he makes a point, but he lets the other person really, really think about themselves. He doesn't force anything. He just lets people. So, who is to say when we say that and we start judging the Levite or the rabbi that moved away, who is to say that I was not the Levite? But we tend to judge the Levite and put him down, and tend to get the Samaritan and put him up. We judge. We do this so easily because we judge everything. So it is very easy for us to judge. Very, very easy. What is very hard for us is to put ourselves in the shoes of that person. And it doesn't matter who that is. If we put ourselves in the shoes of the person that was beaten, that was like in the ground or on the ground, suffering, wasted there and needing every little bit of help that he could get. Or if I am the Samaritan, or if I am the Levite, or if I am the rabbi, or even, what if I am the person that has the hotel? Will I want to receive a person like that in my hotel? But it's easy for us because we are outside and we judge and then we say, oh, I want to be the Samaritan, or I would do the same. Would I? That's the big question. Would I or not? Would I move away from? So that's a question that we really have to think about. And we also judge the criminals. We also judge the criminals. We don't talk about them, but of course, if they're criminals, they did what was wrong. And then we tend to dismiss it, but at the same time, our question or my question is, what would I do if I got to that criminal? What would I say to the criminal? How would I act? And that's what she is trying to tell us here. How would we act, or how do we act when we are facing a criminal? What do we say? How do we do it? And she doesn't say here at any point that she says, of course, that, and let me go back a little bit. I said that in the answer to the question on the Spirit's book, Kardec mentions benevolence, right? But he also says indulgence. And he also says forgiveness. So it's benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. It's three things. That's what Jesus thought when he thought of charity. It's not one thing. See and pay attention. It's not giving anything physically. It can be giving something, but it's not only that. So the word is misunderstood in that sense, the word charity. So when we are looking or seeing a person that did something wrong, the second word that the spirits mention is indulgence. What is indulgence in that sense? Because in English, usually, the word indulgence is taken in a different way. I know that we are Brazilians here, so when we hear indulgence, we already think, I think, about what the context it is. But indulgence in English usually means that you allow yourself to eat more, allow yourself to have more of that. So that's not the idea here. The indulgence is looking at the indulgence or indulge others is look at the other person and say, what would you do if you were in that place? How hard would you want others to be judging you? Are you judging him harder than you're judging yourself? So that's more or less the idea of being indulgent towards another person, is looking at the other person and asking, if I were in his position, if I were in her shoes, wouldn't I do the same thing or even worse? So how hard do I want to judge the others? That's basically the question. How hard do I want to really judge what the other person is doing? She says, second paragraph, she starts by saying, do not judge. That's how she starts. It's not me, it's Elizabeth. I don't know who Elizabeth is, but it's Elizabeth. She's saying, do not judge all. Do not judge, my dear friends, for the judgment you render will be more severely applied to you. And you have need of indulgence for the sins you continually commit, for the errors, the mistakes that we make every single day. We need that same kind of indulgence. So why am I not being indulgent towards the others? What I want to say here, and make a big parenthesis here, which is very, very important. What this message does not say is that if a criminal committed a crime, he needs to pay for the crime. We're not saying that the person that committed a crime does not need to pay for the crime. No, that's not what it is. If a person stole something, depending on the situation, and I'm going to tell a story here that probably most of you know, but it is very saying, it needs to pay for that crime. However, what is to pay for his or her crime? You probably all read or watched, probably more watched than read, but a book by a French author, which also, by the way, wrote books discarnated as well through Divaldo Franco, called Victor Hugo. Probably, I don't know if you read it or not, but Divaldo wrote a few books, or Victor Hugo wrote a few books through Divaldo. And he wrote one of the most, probably the most classical, or one of the classics of literature of all time, Les Miserables. That's been made into musicals, into movies, into adaptations in French, in English, in whatever language. This is such a big story that is. Jean Valjean is the name of the main character of the story. He was taking care of his, I think it was, I can't remember precisely now, but it was the widow, I don't know if it was his brother or if it was his sister, whatever. But he was taking care of the widow. I think it was the widow of his brother that had, I don't know, a few kids. And he ended up having to steal some bread, steal food, because there was no food at the time when they were trying to leave. And then he was caught and he was sent to prison. But he was completely against it, and he fought against it, but there's no way he went to prison. He wanted to get out. He tried to escape, and he tried to escape a few times. Every time he tried to escape and he was caught, he was imprisoned again, and 3 more years added to his sentence. So he ended up being in jail for 19 years. He gets out of prison. But at the time in France, when you get out of prison of being a convicted felon, you get out with a passport. It's your ID. But your ID is yellow. So everybody knows that you are a convict. And who wants to hire? What are you going to do? So he is received by a priest. At first, when he gets to the house, no one wants to let him in. Sends him away because of his yellow passport. But then the priests know about it, and then gets him inside. And that's right at the beginning of the story. This is such a classical story. I'm not telling anybody, like, any spoilers here, right? So he gets there, and then he eats everything he can. Of course, he's starving, but he is a very strong man, but he's starving. He has not been able to eat for a few days or whatever it is. Then at night, he wants to get out, and he doesn't want to stay there anymore, and he wants to make a living for himself. And what does he do? He steals from the priest. But what does he steal? He doesn't steal like small stuff. Everything that they eat, with what they eat at the time, is made out of silver, which is very, very expensive. So he steals a lot of stuff. He steals like plates and forks and knives and whatever it is, and puts it in his bag, and he leaves the house. Next day, he is brought back to the house. The police got him with the bag full of stuff. And they recognize it was from the priest. He gets to the house. The priest comes running after him, and the priest, the police comes. Hey, Father, we got this man with these things that are yours, and he comes and yells, Jean Valjean, Jean Valjean, you forgot this, and then he brings one more piece of silverware and gives to him. And then after that, he changes his life completely. He was never a bad guy. Let's say it. He didn't steal because he wanted to cause harm to anybody. But that action right there, and the priest says, with this, God is buying your soul. And he doesn't understand what he's saying. And he still tries to do something wrong, but then he remembers what the priest said. And then he goes after the person which he was trying to do something wrong and make amends. And then after that, he changes completely. And his life is a completely different life from after that. And then we would have to read or watch the movie Les Miserables to understand where the Les Miserables come from, the miserable come from. He paid for 19 years for stealing. So he paid. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay. Paid for what he stole. Even if it's not that correct or whatever. I'm not here to judge in that specific case. But what is a criminal? If not someone who is exactly like us, but was put into a situation where they couldn't choose a better way of doing it. what if we were in that position? So, once again, it's not about not putting them or whoever, me or whoever it is, in jail or to pay for something, to give back to the community, or whatever the what's the word? The situation or the crime, the punishment is. Whatever it is. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done, period. The question is, how do we look at them? And that's what she is trying to make us understand. Regard yourselves, and I'm going to finish because it's already time. Regard yourselves as more reprehensible and guilty, as more. That's the first paragraph. I told you I would not go into deep, so you have to read the rest, because I only read part of the first paragraph, part of the second paragraph, and part of the third. Then there's much more in the end. Regard yourselves as more reprehensible and guilty than those whom you refuse forgiveness. Because quite often, they do not know God as you do. And less will be asked of them than it will be asked of you. If a kid commits a mistake, the kid is much less reprehensible than an adult that commits the same mistake, because the adult knows much more than the kid. That's the big thing. So there's much more here. But I wanted to let everyone, including me, to remember and maybe have take a minute, or more than a minute, take a few hours to watch the movie, or take a few more hours to read the book, to read Les Miserables. It's not a spiritist book. It's not a religious book. It's a book on literature, and it's one of the greatest books ever written. It can be in any form. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be read. But if you're into reading, read Les Miserables. And let's think about what is to be miserable. Because that's what the book is all about. What is to be miserable? Is it to be poor? Is it to be rich? What is it to be miserable? And that's the power of the book, because it goes deep into the hearts of those characters. And those characters can be us. Those characters are us. So we are people. We look at others is sometimes as being worse or being better than others. And are we really better than others? Are we worse than others? Because I am black, because I was born poor, because I was born rich, because I was born in a region of a country, in a country of itself. Like I was born, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Is it? Should we really treat people like this? So is it really that criminals deserve much less than the others? And what about non-criminals? Because if we are treating non-criminals as criminals all the time, judging, putting them down just because they are black or they are women, they are whatever they are, what are we doing as a civilization, as a person, as a Christian, as a religious person? What am I doing? Is this the world that we want for ourselves? I don't think so. And that's what she tries to take from us, to bring to us, is put ourselves in the position of the other. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of Jean Valjean. He's taking care of a widow with 7 kids. He has no work. The situation is terrible. What did he do? It was wrong. It is wrong to take from other people. It is wrong. Of course it is wrong. We're not saying that it is not wrong, but where's humanity on top of it? Why didn't the government at the time, why was the government not really helping these people? Why do I have to get to that point, that low in life? Charity towards criminals is actually charity towards ourselves. to finish is it was asked of Emmanuel. There's this book, I never saw a translation of it, but this is such a small thing. Was asked of Emmanuel. There's in this book, it's called Chico de Francisco. It's one of these books about Chico Xavier, but it's a very tiny book with very short stories, and this got stuck into my mind like in a way that maybe I'll never forget. It's like etched into my soul. They asked Emmanuel, what's the definition of a criminal? And Emmanuel says, one that was not discovered yet. What is to be a criminal? She says about it. She talks about it here. What is to be a criminal in this message? So once again, thank you for your patience, for speaking a little bit more. But it's chapter 11, item number 14, charity towards criminals. I really and highly recommend everyone to read this message here. And with that, I think we're all set here, right? So I'm just going to do our final prayer, reminding everyone that we have our meetings on every Monday, of course. Not all are transmitted; only the English ones are transmitted online. But we are here every single Monday for our regular meetings. We are here every Saturday for our regular meetings. Always at. Apologize. At 7 p.m. as usually, our local time here. On Wednesdays we have our study group. We're studying the book Paul and Stephen. We are going to have a little break now in October for a few weeks. I'm gonna travel, so I'm not gonna be able to be around for a few weeks. But it's always very good to be here. This Wednesday I'm gonna be here. Still, so we're still going to have it. So we have it online, but since I am here at Cantinho, if anyone wants to join, I'm here. But we do it online with people that are in their houses. And I think that's it. And for now, well, there will be this speaker that's coming from Brazil in November now, on November 19th. That will be a Saturday. His name is Guilherme Velho. He will come from Recife, and he's going to talk about life after life, vida após a vida. He has a book with the same name. He's a medium. He's been talking about mediumship for quite a while. He travels the world. He's kind of a young guy still, but he's doing a good work on spreading the word of Spiritism. And he's going to be here with us on November 19th. It's still a while away, but it gets here so fast that better start talking about it. So with this, let's finish our meeting, do our final prayer. If you want, we can close our eyes so that we can finish our meeting, connecting with God and connecting with Jesus, and asking Him to protect ourselves. We know, dear Master, that's what you do all the time. Through your messengers, through your love that you send to us, also through your message. But Jesus, in this moment in our lives, we always say that we need you more than ever, but we need you more than ever. When we have so many things to decide for ourselves, for our society, we ask for your indulgence, to allow us to forgive ourselves for mistakes, for errors that we make, so that we can still look up, see ourselves in the mirrors, and say, hey, we are fragile, but we are also strong. So we ask for your help, for your hand, for your shoulder, for you to help us walk. Follow through your message of love, of compassion, of looking towards the other, and seeing in the other not a distant relative, but a brother, a sister to the heart and a sister to the soul, that we can relate to them and judge less, loving more. May this love that we feel now stay and remain with us, so that when we walk back home, when we think, when we speak, and when we act, we can put that love into everything that we do. May your blessings follow us, follow our families and our friends, and surround the entire earth, so that we can sleep better, to live better. So be it. So thank you everyone for staying up, and hopefully we'll be back and we'll see ourselves soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.